throughout the corporate world in 495 area as sinful. And they had all these special chefs that made some of their food. And one day they started to get a lot of complaints from their big corporate customers. What happened to the sinful brownies? Well, they were still serving them, but they weren't sinful. So they went to the brownie chef and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And then they proceeded to do something very interesting. The owner partner got a bowl. Said, "Do you get a bowl like this?" "Yes." "And do you put the sugar in like this?" "Yes." "Do you pour it slowly?" "Yes." "And do you mix the egg in this way with a cup?" "Yes." They never once asked this lady to make them. They basically show her how they make them. And she kept bobbing her head. And you should know that the lady that was making them also shopped at the local organic farmers market, which should have given them a clue. So after they went through the whole procedure, sifting the flour, this sifted left and sifted right, they walked away saying, "I don't know what's wrong with our brownie recipe." But anyway, after a lot of sleuthing, they found out that the nice lady, who eventually, by the way, bought their business, had lots of trucks, had a big restaurant outlet. She actually thought the brownies were too sinful too, and so she was using whole wheat flour instead of regular wheat flour. She was using half the sugar. Now she put the sugar in slowly, just like they did, and she basically changed all the ingredients and sort of dumbed them down. At which point they realized that these are no longer going to be sinful brownies, and they sold the business. And this is the recipe that built the empire and eventually moved the empire into an organic food business. And if anybody else would like to come up with a related story, I will relinquish the microphone.
She was a ton of fun. I thought, oh, I like this woman. And then one day, you may know this Mary Peggy Orr had these extra tickets. She was doing this fundraiser at the Opry Plaza Hotel. And she had 2 tickets, and she said, "Take what you want." So I'm gonna bring that girl Neil. I thought she was pretty cool. So Neil and I drove into town. We laughed and giggled the whole way in. So we had this wonderful time, and I go, "Oh, I just," and then she was always saying, "Oh, we're the new best friend, the new best friend." So they always had this thing saying, "Oh, you're the new best friend." So what happened was we got to know each other quite well. There was a lot of golf between the 4 of us. The late afternoons after work and so forth that Paul mentioned earlier, that was a lot of fun. We always had a glass of wine on the cart, and we'd come in and have dinner. But there was always the time when Neil and I would be on the phone 2 or 3 times a week. "Oh, I've got a chicken. Oh, I've got a salad." Before you know it, we were making dinner. And then we ended up in the hot tub with a glass of wine. So that was always fun. But I remember this time going to her house on Coburn Road, and there must have been like 18 people sitting on this big long table, and all of a sudden everybody received this beautifully little carved pumpkin with homemade pumpkin soup in it, and it was to die for. And we were scraping out the whole bits of everything, eating the whole thing, and that wasn't enough. After the next entree, the entree was everyone received their own little packet of this parchment with the most delicious chicken with turnip, and you'd never even know it was turnip, but somehow or other, everybody received this beautiful little package on their plate, and we all opened it and enjoyed this beautiful meal. She had played 18 holes of golf that day. She carried off dinner parties like it was like that, and everybody felt welcomed and warmed and well-fed and greeted, and we drank and we laughed and we talked, and it was all Neil. It was all Neil. Neil did all of these things. I miss her most.
Well, I miss her the most because she was the most creative woman I've ever met, and I know a lot of musicians, a lot of artists in my life. This woman could do something from nothing, and she was very bold. She took lots of chances, and I learned so much from Neil Montague that I will carry in my life forever. Thank you.
Okay, baby. Just gonna finish.
Good afternoon, everybody. I figured I'd take Paul's advice, and I would go ahead and take my opportunity to speak since I had one. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Like Paul, I'm going to go way back. I'm going to get us back into the 80s, tell you some old stories. My name is Matt Maffei. I grew up in Southborough. There's a lot of Southborough folks here. Some guys from the boroughs. And one of my favorite stories, when I was a kid growing up, I had 3 older brothers. I grew up in like a lot of us in Southborough, great family, great homes. And we threw some great parties at my house in Southborough. And I thought they were really great parties. And then I met the Donahues. And I realized they took it up another level, which was really impressive. But one of my favorite times was, heck, we were still pretty young. We were probably 8th graders. We had this grand idea, and it was the weekend where our big spring project was due. And we had a good idea that we were going to go out to the fields behind Sears Road and some of the streets back there. We're going to camp out and party for the night, a Saturday night. So it was myself, some of the guys here, Greg Maloney, Steve Mattson, our buddy Jimmy Barron, Jay Reese. We all went out to the woods, and Ryan showed up, and we all lied to our parents. And we all said, I'm sleeping here, you're sleeping there. And Ryan shows up and says, well, I told my folks what I was going to do. And they said I could come out and have a beer or two with you guys. Mind you, we're probably 15 years old. But I got to go home and do my project. So we all spent the night out in the woods. And I'll never forget it. We got chased by the police, and we were, the typical teenage type stuff that you shouldn't be doing. We do it. And I remember waking up at 4:35 in the morning, and we're cold, and we're wet, and we have no sanctuary, we have nowhere to go. And we all sit and go, what are we going to do? And we go, well, we'll go to Donahue. So they'll take us in, and no one's going to judge us there. So my buddy Jimmy had a dirt bike. We came out of the woods, and he shuttled us all to the Donahue's household. And we could sneak in Ryan's basement door, and I'll never forget it. One by one, Ryan's buddies showed up at 5 a.m., and any other household in Southborough, the mother would wake up and come downstairs and say, why the hell are your friends here at 5 a.m.? But not Neil. Neil came down. She gave us all high fives, big hugs. She had us shower, wear Ryan's clothes, and then fed us breakfast. So that just shows you how open the Donahue household was. So I want to share that story. That's one of my favorite stories in Neil, because I'll never forget loving the fact that I had breakfast at Ryan's, and then my mom picked me up and said, well, you said you slept at the Rossini's house. Why are you at the Donahue's? And I was in trouble for going out all night as a 14-year-old kid. But I love to thank the Donahue's. They were such a great Southborough family. They always took care of us, and we'll definitely always remember Neil. So thank you.
I'm married to one of Neil's nephews, and when I first met my now husband, I thought it was great. Workable. very workable. Really love these people. And then the first time I met Brian's extended family, it was Easter, and we went to Paul and Neil's and fell in love with Neil a little bit. And then I realized, like, I have to marry into this family. Because I really, I was doing a conga line around the living room. We danced to ABBA. And Neil stole a little bit of my heart that day. So I love it.
Just keep it short and sweet. But I'm Kate. I'm one of Neil's nieces. We're from Ohio, and so we would always spend Christmas, Thanksgiving, lots of summers in Massachusetts. And there'd be the inevitable catch-up with Aunt Neil, sort of academics, romances, athletics, building on everything. And at the end of every story, no matter what was going on in my life, she would always say, "Kate, the world is your oyster." And that has stuck. And there's so many times in my life when my mom's just like, "Oh, what else happened? The world is your oyster." So don't settle for anything, work as hard as you can, be happy, and so that's something that I try to embody every day. And it's very much, it came from Neil, so I'm really grateful for that. And then as Katie said, great memories of dancing in sort of the Brent Avenue house. They weren't just dance parties, these were conga lines to ABBA, James Brown, dancing on sofas, dancing at tables, completely normal. So I'm kind of hoping maybe before you all leave, we could play a little ABBA, do a conga line around. I think it would be very appropriate. So maybe when everybody's done saying what they want, we can pick an appropriate song and so yeah.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to make sure the microphone was really working. Sorry. Yes, you get one, you get the other. So my name is Karen Pitts, and I have had the pleasure of knowing Casey Donahue Ladd before she became Casey Ladd. I met her when she was working at the Golf Channel back in the 1990s, Case, I guess. So flash forward, I go to work for Dexter Shoe Company, and I meet this bright young star, Dan Ladd, and I was told I could only get the job at the company if I got along with him. So I met him, we had lunch, I sucked up to him, I said, hey, I'd really like to work with you. Anyway, years later, we had the opportunity to get to know Paul and Neil. At the time, I was going through a fairly traumatic breakup, and they were very curious about my personal life. I was very dodgy about my personal life. And by the way, this person that you see up here was a part of that personal life, and she too was going through a very dicey time. So Dan and Casey said, listen, I'd love for you to come to Weston Country Club and meet my parents and have dinner together. And immediately I panicked. I thought, oh my God, they're going to ask me, like, what's your deal? Are you happy? Are you in a relationship? And this was a long time ago, when things weren't quite so open and accepting. So we go to, not we, I go to the club, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, good, we're getting through this, not too many personal questions. And then Paul looks at me and Neil looks at me and they said, so Karen, are you seeing anyone? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, I've been wanting to tell you guys, I have this amazing relationship Chris and I have been so happy now for about a year, but there's a divorce and breakups, and I hope that at some point in time you can meet Chris. And they're like, well, we'd love to meet Chris. And I'm like, really? Would you like to meet Chris? And they're like, no, we'd love to meet Chris. And Dan's looking at me like, I've never heard about Chris. Casey's looking at me, I've never heard about Chris. So anyway, I said, well, you will meet Chris. And here she is. And I said, she would love to meet you. And Neil looked at me and she said, well, Chris is a member of the family now. She's like, we can't wait to meet Chris. The next thing you know, we're having a Christmas party, a dinner at Dan and Casey's place on Isabella Street in Boston. And Paul and Neil show up, and we have this amazing experience. So when we heard what we heard today, in terms of Neil made everyone feel welcome in the most difficult of circumstances, it really resonated. So just an amazing, amazing woman. And she did make us all feel better about ourselves. She made us want to celebrate life. And a year or so after we had that famous dinner in December of maybe 2001, I don't even know, she came to a 40th birthday party we had for Chris. And in typical Paul and Neil style, Paul was wearing a kilt. Dan and Casey, who hadn't gotten married yet, were in fine spirits, as they always are. And they brought Chris a birthday present that we have held on to, a hat and a boa. And after hearing Paul's conversation today, we know that this is a forgiving hat. So she has absolutely blessed our lives and all of us. Somebody told me once that people never remember what you say, they never remember what you do, but they will always remember how you make them feel. And Neil Donahue lived that, embodied that. I see that in her children and soon her grandchildren, and thank you so much.
All right, so there's always this competition between Northborough and Southborough, and I happen to be one of the few people from Northborough here, so can't let Matt Maffei be the only one to speak about Neil and the relationship. And realized we weren't going to be in any competitions for presidencies of any classes. So Ryan and I actually both separately went to different prep schools and graduated from those schools. So it's kind of like the Civil War, the North and the South. There's Northborough and there's Southborough. Southborough's got a lot of energy, not so smart, but a lot of heart. Northborough's kind of a little bit smarter, a little bit, they called us a little more preppy. I luckily rode dirt bikes and, did some other things that they accepted me for. So early on in 8th grade, they took me on as a kind of a borough, instead of a Southborough or Northborough, I was kind of a borough boy. I spent a lot of time at Ryan's house, 8th, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, whatever it was, through high school. And if I had a couple drinks the night before, I didn't like to sleep very late, so I'd wake up very early. And I always saw a very enthusiastic Neil in the kitchen every morning when I slept there. So she and I shared many conversations in the mornings. I think I have a tuna fish addiction because it was always in the fridge at the house. And I still always need tuna fish in my fridge. And I think that really does relate back to Neil. So God bless her. I think she's in a better place. And we're blessed to have had the memories we had for so long with the times that we had with her.
Get that baby out of here. Hi, I'm Darren. I'm one of the nephews, and I have a quick story. Sort of embodies Neil. So I broke my back when I was playing football in high school. And I wore this pretty cumbersome back brace. Had these 3 huge Velcro straps and went down past my butt. And I remember one time we were over at Paul and Neil's. Neil said, "How are you gonna have sex in that thing?" Very vivacious, so thank you, Neil. God bless you. Very slowly. 'Cause
Calling Paul's advice, I'm not going to miss the opportunity. I'm Brian, another nephew of Neil's. And unfortunately, due to a lot of concussions and alcohol, I don't have very many memories at all. But, like was said earlier, it's not the words or the physical memories, the facts, but the emotions that you're left with are very, very strong, especially with Neil. And luckily, my wife, who has had less concussions, not less booze, but less concussions, has reminded me, she spoke earlier of our first Easter together up here, and apparently Neil was unbuttoning my shirt and selling me to her, saying, "This is the guy you gotta be with. Look at this guy." So my emotions, my emotional memory of Neil is extremely strong. She's always been a huge presence in every family event we've ever had. And the moment she entered the room, you say, okay, this party just got a lot better. And everyone, from the laugh that you can never forget, or the smile that you can never forget, the memories, the emotional memories are so strong and vivid that just her being there or not being there, you knew. You just remember the memory of the next day, no matter how much you drank or didn't drink. Your memory was better, the party was better. And thank you, Neil, for giving us that. And thank you for apparently helping me catch my wife. Because my life has been a lot better for having both of you in it. So thank you.
Just start with we're with you. I'm always a punk. I was thinking that there are some. One of the things that Paul and Neil did brilliantly, I think, was really help raise their nieces and nephews, 2 of whom happen to be my daughters. So I'm always infinitely grateful for Paul and Neil for giving Kate and Corey an incredible sense of life and perspective. So, in Gibran's The Prophet, he has a phrase where it says that the oak and the cypress don't grow in each other's shadow. Not exactly how he says it. But I'm always struck by the fact that for Paul and Neil, what they did brilliantly was take turns being the oak and the cypress. And that was provided a great balance in their love and their life. So as Kate and Corey were growing up, with not a tremendous amount of restrictions in their life either, because we were paying close attention to Paul and Neil, I could always look at them when something was going awry in our house and said, if you'd done a better job raising us, you wouldn't have this problem. So I want to thank Casey and Ryan for doing a really good job of raising Paul and Neil, with Paul and Neil, and to thank Paul and Neil for helping us doing a wonderful job raising our children and being part of his family, and for taking turns in the balance of who is the cypress and who is the oak, because I think they did that really well together.
Neil, she used to confide in me that if she were to ever come back, it's your wish. She wanted to come back as a rock star. And she always wanted to be on stage, I think. She always wanted to wow the crowd. She always wanted to get on the bus and go to the next place, and the groupies would be following, and she'd wow them again. She always, that was her, if I could do it again, story. She loved music, not particularly a great singer, or at least in her own mind. But as you remember this movie called, or the play called Same Time Next Year? That she was a woman that was like Same Time Next Year. Every 5 years, she looked like she had gone through a metamorphosis. And near the end here, she fell in love with rap music, which never really caught my interest, but she loved rap music. And it got me thinking, because in the last years of her disease, she never complained. She never said, you know, look what it used to be, look what I got now. And she never worried about, look where it's going. And how she absolutely lived her entire life in the moment. And if the moment was rap, she was rapping. And if her brain was collapsing, that's what I got. And that's all I got to get. And that was maybe the finest lesson that she left me with. It was just, I've always aspired to live in the moment. Aspired, but she lived in the moment. Just a great lesson. Someday maybe I'll like rap long after it's gone. Still time, there's still time.
My name is Marky. I'm Neil's new old friend. I'm very shy. This is very hard for me. I could tell 1,000,001 stories, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to tell my last story. We were together. This is my last story. We were sitting together on the couch in Dartmouth. We'd had a couple of drinks. Okay, we had a lot of drinks. And she had had her diagnosis, and we were talking, and I said, "Are you afraid?" And she said, "No, I'm not afraid. I just wish I could see my grandchildren grow up." So we started hugging and kissing and petting each other and crying. And there was a man across the room. And I said, "Neil, I think he thinks we're making out." And she said, "Okay, let's give him a show."
So before there were the Maffeys and the Barelowitz, there was the Kimballs, the Hammonds, the Merrills, the Kaczynskis, the Bill Garveys, and the Casey Gunn. And I have so many fond memories of Neil. Like, her house was just a sanctuary. I think a couple people have said that. It's just a place where you could just go and feel at home and comfortable and loved. And the Donahues always, at least a couple summers, rented a house on the Cape. And this one year, we all got to go down there in high school and spent the whole day drinking, typical for a Donahue event. And so we're sleeping, the guys, me and my buddy Rhino and Billy, were sleeping in one of the bedrooms. It's like 2 in the morning, and all of a sudden, Rhino gets on top of Billy because he's sleeping, dreaming, and putting the moves on Rhino. And so and Billy wakes up, and one of them wakes up and goes, "What the hell are you doing? Get off me!" So we're dying hysterical, right? And this goes on, and we're laughing. Neil's like, "You guys keep it down, keep it down, keep it down." So we couldn't stop, because this is just so freaking funny, right? So finally Neil says, "You a-holes, get out of my house!" So she throws us out of the house, literally out of the house. We spent the night on the beach, got eaten by the no-see-em things, slept in a tent, the three of us, like, still laughing. She made us breakfast the next day, we told her what happened, she thought it was hysterical. And it was just like, things like that. I could tell so many stories about playing AC/DC air guitar with Josh on the balcony, drinking Coors Light, ending up in the hot tub. They weren't home, but they probably would have participated if they were there. But Neil is a special lady. She just was really special. And she always made me feel good about myself. She always asked me, "So, tell me about what's going on with your love life. What's going on?" She always wanted to know what's happening. She was just, as Paul said, a shooting star. That's a great way to remember her. So